To the flowers that will never fade. Storytelling and illustration by 한빛이네코. This story is about comfort women that suffers from Japanese military sexual slavery. It is based on the research and written by 한빛이네코. Through this book, we 한빛이네코 would like to help recover the honor of the comfort women, our sisters, mothers, and grandmothers. My dear children, we would like to let you know that the font of this story is the calligraphy of Miss Won-woo, and the message on the back cover is saying of Miss Kim Han-sun, who were comfort women.
Do you remember the day playing youth with me? It was on the New Year's Day when you were little kids. Watching you have fun, I remembered when my happiness was followed by the fear. It was the day after Seoll날, Lunar New Year's Day.
At that time, a lot of girls in my town gradually disappeared. It was said that they were sent to make the Imperial Army's uniforms, but they were not. Instead, the soldiers took the girls to the battlefield as comforters for soldiers. I, as well, was taken to the place with the girls, disappearing from my town and my family.
I was found myself thrown in the area called Namyanggundo. I hadn't heard the name before and I had no idea where it was. The place I was confined was so dark and filled with the cries of girls. The soldiers who stood in there in front of us looked like hunting dogs, and I was like a trembling little rabbit.
The rabbit in front of the hunting dogs was brutally trampled. After the first appalling violation, I grabbed a thin blanket and cried all day. They said I was joining an honorable mission by comforting Imperial soldiers, but for the soldiers it was just a momentary pleasure. It was, for me, just an indelible fear and abject humiliation. I was rather eager to die to disappear from the agony. In spite of the drastic and terrifying assaults, I survived. My survivor fortunately allowed me to be with you and tell my story to you.
The awful days were full of awful things day by day, and one day one of my friends who was pregnant was killed. It was caused by the mercury poisoning. The baby, who wasn't welcome to this world, was eliminated by the brutal beasts. They forced its mother to eat poison, and it made the unborn baby and its mother blow away like the breeze and disappear. I was tattooed with Japanese letter on my right wrist and on my belly. Those tattoos inscribed on my body were like a sentence by the brutal era. I was innocent, but I was guilty, they said. I wanted, and I was ready to be a pretty flower, but I couldn't blossom. They forced me not to bloom.
In those days, I was already loved of everything I had. The only thing I could have was my life, and the only thing I was worried about was losing my memories from before the darkness. So I tried not to forget them while watching the lights from the stars in the night sky, drawing the faces that I loved and that loved me on the canvas of the sky above.
Even in the windswept winter field, a warm spring breeze blew. I had escaped from the darkness. It was the season of spring, but the winter hadn't gone yet.
I was fortunately able to get back to my hometown and have a chance to return to the place I had belonged. Our neighborhood, however, had changed a lot while I was away, and my family, my mom and dad, were not in my memories anymore. People who seemed to recognize me looked at me contempt. There wasn't any place nor any people to welcome me to my home.
I inquired here and there after my mother and father, but I couldn't find any use. They must have looked for me, missing me anxiously, I thought. They would have passed away, I guessed. From that moment on, I was hardly able to remember the faces of my mother and father.
Finally, I decided to leave my country, which didn't give me any comforts. I left for Gamdor in China and tried to live a new life. Everything was new, strange, and terrifying again.
but I was determined to survive again. No one saw me with contempt. They just didn't see me. I was alone.
Life in Gando became similar to that of my hometown. I wasn't able to get along with people. When I walked, I just couldn't help but shrink down the street and huddle into myself. I could not stand up to the world strongly. I found myself scared of people. I was too exhausted to live in a world without people who could support me. People didn't see me as a part of their world, and I couldn't find anyone as my neighbor. I gradually reeled away. I was ready to disappear from this world.
One day, I discovered some flowers by chance. The flowers that showed a strong will suddenly captivated me. The flowers stood up against the biting wind. Watching the flowers, I shed a tear, hoping to be like those flowers. I pledged to no longer be discouraged, to never give in to anything. The name of the flowers is 무궁화, and the meaning of its name is eternal blossoms that will never fade. The blossoms close in the evening, but bloom again in the morning. I was the flower that fell to the ground, but I promised myself, be the one blooming again.
My beloved grandchildren, my adorable sweethearts, I would like you to grow with strength like 무궁화, enduring the harsh cold wind, overcoming the darkness.
There were many girls who went through this hard time together. We didn't know each other before meeting in the darkness. Some of them were foreigners who I couldn't even communicate with. Some women were somewhat older, and some were much younger than me.
We were all different in age, nationality, the environment we were brought up in, but we relied upon each other to bear against those painful days. We used to talk about why this awful thing happened to us, and we wished that we hadn't slept in fear and hadn't met sunrises with sounds of gunshot.
Why did these awful things happen to us? Why was there only hatred and dreadful violation around us instead of the things that could give us love and peace? The place was just full of tragedy, anger and anxiety, fury and frustration. The only hope to stop the tragedy, even in the middle of the madness, was find love. But in this madness, there was no possibility to find love.
Being in the madness, I gradually began to forget how to love people. Even after I escaped from this hell, I was so afraid of people that I couldn't believe in anyone around me. It was the brutal beasts who didn't know how to love people that destroyed me. But it was the flowers that made me live again and finally gave me courage to approach people. Your grandma, therefore, wants you to be children who know how to love others. After learning a way to love people, I hope you will become people who can keep peace in the darkness where we couldn't find how to love people.
If we were indifferent to keep love from hatred and protect peace in wartime, this tragedy that shouldn't have happened again will be repeated.
So please don't forget the pain we've been through. I want you to remember that we had a hard time you can't even imagine. I, therefore, would like to call all of you my grandchildren. All of you who received this letter, I want you to be my grandchildren.
To my grandchildren, I would like to share this sad story, and I would like you to promise this to me.
Have a happy life, loving each other with dauntless strength. Don't waste your time worrying that darkness is coming. You are living in your blossom-like days, and you deserve to be happier than flowers.
So again, I would like to ask you to be like 무궁화, flowers that fade in the evening and start to bloom again in the morning. With courage that faces up to the biting wind and with love that makes you empathize others' hurts. You will bloom like the most beautiful flowers in the world.
To you, who will live just like 무궁화, I leave you this long letter. In the season when 무궁화 is making buds, we much love your grandma, the girl hoping to comfort your life, who was called a comfort woman.
We must recall these things that were forced upon us. Kim Hak-sun. The story of the Korean comfort woman ends here. Thank you for listening. 영원히 지지 않을 너에게 Storytelling and Illustration by 한빛이네코. 이 책은 일본군 성노예제의 피해자였던 위안부 할머니들에 관한 이야기를 한빛고등학교 국제교류협력반 한빛이네코 학생들이 재구성한 것으로 할머니들의 명예의 회복과 존중을 위한 작은 도움을 드리고자 제작되었습니다. 사랑하는 손주에게 한빛이네코 학생들의 집단 창작으로 구성된 이 이야기는 위안부 피해자이신 길원옥 할머니의 글씨체를 사용하였습니다. 그리고 뒷표지에는 김학순 할머니의 메시지를 담았습니다.
어렸을 적에 할머니와 함께 윷놀이했던 것 기억나니? 네가 재밌게 노는 모습을 보면서 할머니의 소녀 시절이 생각났단다.
할머니가 네 나이쯤 되었을까. 그 당시 우리 마을 골목에서 여자들은 점점 사라져갔어. 그리고 나도 곧바로 우리 마을에서 사라졌지.
어두컴컴한 그곳엔 소녀들의 울음소리가 가득했단다. 덤덤히 서서 우리를 보고 있는 군인들의 모습은 마치 사냥개 같았고 그 앞에 선 나는 떨고 있는 작은 토끼 같았지.
사냥개 앞에 토끼는 처참하게 짓밟혔어. 나는 얇은 이불을 부여잡고 밤새 눈물을 흘렸지. 우리는 그들에게 순간의 여흥일 뿐 그 이상 그 이하도 아니었어. 그래도 살았으니 다행이라고 그렇게 나를 위로했단다.
그러던 어느 날 뱃속에 아이를 가졌던 나의 친구가 죽었어. 수은 중독이었지. 그들이 억지로 먹인 수은에 중독돼서 세상을 떠나고 만 거야. 그것뿐이 아니었어. 나의 오른쪽 가슴 위와 배엔 영원히 지워지지 않을 알 수 없는 문양이 새겨졌지. 그때 내 나이 이팔 청춘, 꽃같은 시절은 금방 시들어져 버렸단다.
그때 우리는 모든 것을 빼앗겼고 나에게 남은 것은 언제 잃을지 모르는 옅은 목숨뿐이었어. 가족들의 얼굴마저 잊어버릴까 두려워 밤하늘의 별들을 보며 추억을 수놓았지.
북한의 겨울에도 봄바람은 불어오더구나.
기억을 더듬어 우리 집을 찾아갔어. 내가 없는 사이 우리 동네가 많이 바뀌어 있더구나. 어머니와 아버지는 더 이상 그 집에 살고 있지 않았지. 날 알아본 동네 사람들은 왜인지 나를 차가운 눈으로 바라봤단다. 그곳엔 내가 서 있을 자리란 없었던 거야.
어머니와 아버지의 소식을 수소문했지만 찾을 수 없었어. 나를 그리워하다가 나를 찾다가 눈을 감으셨겠지. 이제는 그립던 어머니와 아버지의 얼굴도 잘 기억이 나지 않는단다.
결국 난 조선을 떠나기로 결심했어. 중국 만주로 가서 새 인생을 살아보려고 했지. 모든 게 새로웠고 낯설었어. 그래도 꿋꿋이 살아가고자 했단다. 그러나 만주에서의 생활도 별 다르지 않았단다. 난 항상 땅을 보고 길을 걸었고 어깨는 점점 움츠려져 갔어. 사람이 무서웠단다. 아무렇지 않게 누군가를 대하기조차 어려웠지.
어느 날 나는 참 대견한 꽃을 발견했어. 무궁화였지. 외로운 무궁화는 매서운 칼바람을 견디고 우뚝 서 있더구나. 그리고 난 다짐했단다. 결코 지지 않는 무궁화가 되겠노라고.
사랑하는 손주야, 아름다운 내 아이야. 늘 아름다운 하지만 강인한 꽃으로 자라거라. 혹독한 추위에도 피고 견디는 저 무궁화처럼.
살다 보니 문득 함께 힘겨운 시절을 보냈던 친구들이 생각나더구나. 그 중에는 말도 통하지 않는 이국인들, 나보다 나이가 배는 많았던 여인들, 나보다 한참 어린 동생들이 있었지.
나이도 국적도 자라난 환경도 모두 다른 우리들이었지만 우리는 고통스러운 현실 속에서 서로에게 의지하며 그 시절을 견뎠단다. 우리는 종종 왜 우리가 이런 일을 당해야 하는지에 대해 이야기하곤 했단다. 총소리로 아침을 맞이하고 두려움 속에 잠을 청하는 일은 더 이상 일어나지 않아야 해.
이 모든 것들이 사람을 사랑하지 않아서 일어난 비극이야. 이런 비극을 막을 수 있는 유일한 힘은 바로 사랑이란다.
이 할머니는 내가 사람을 사랑하는 법을 아는 아이가 되었으면 좋겠구나. 사람을 사랑하는 법을 배운 후엔 그 사랑을 지킬 수 있는 평화를 가꿔내는 사람이 되기를 바란다.
우리들이 평화에 무관심하다면 이 비극은 반복될 거란다.
그러니 부디 잊지 말아주렴. 우리가 겪었던 아픔을. 그리고 기억해주렴. 우리의 힘들었던 나날을.
이 세상의 모든 손주들아, 이 편지를 받은 너희 모두 나의 손주란다.
너희의 꽃다운 시절을 의미 있게 보내렴. 꽃보다 소중한 너희들은 행복할 자격이 있어.
내게 어떤 꽃을 가장 좋아하느냐고 묻는다면 나는 주저앉고 답할 거란다. 나는 무궁화, 우리나라의 무궁화가 가장 좋다고. 지지 않고 영원히 피는 꽃, 나는 그런 무궁화가 참 좋다고.
무궁화 같은 삶을 살아갈 너희에게 이 할머니가 긴 편지를 남긴다. 고맙다. 그리고 행복하렴. 무궁화가 활짝 핀 계절에 할머니가.
우리가 강요에 못 이겨 했던 그 일을 역사에 남겨두어야 한다. 김학순 할머니. 일본군 위안부 할머니들에 대한 이야기는 여기까지입니다. 들어주셔서 감사합니다.